The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was bigger than most planets, built by 12 different alien races working together. Today, something terrible brought them all here for an emergency meeting. Commander Ji-Woo Park walked through the long metal hallways. His human uniform looked simple next to the fancy clothes of the other species. The Veltar wore crystal suits that sparkled with inner light. The Keth moved as one group, their hive mind making them act like parts of the same machine. The Luxari didn't even have real bodies. They were just floating balls of bright energy. Gu-Woo felt small among them. Humans had only joined the Galactic community 50 years ago. To these ancient races, that was like yesterday. Some of them had been traveling between stars for thousands of years before humans even learned to make fire. The meeting room was huge. A giant round table sat in the center, with chairs made for dozens of different body types. Holographic displays floated everywhere, showing star maps covered in red warning symbols. Each red dot meant a star system that had gone dark forever. The situation grows worse each day, said High Crystal Velanara of the Veltar. Her voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. 17 more systems lost power this week. The darkness spreads faster than our best ships can travel. Ji-Woo looked at the star maps. Whole sections of the galaxy were now black. It had started 3,000 years ago, with just one star burning out too early. Now entire regions had no light at all. Billions of worlds sat cold and dead in space. Our greatest scientists cannot explain it, buzzed the Keth Collective through. Their speaker drone. The energy simply vanishes. Stars that should burn for billions more years die in mere centuries. Even young, hot stars lose their fire. Dr. Hai-Jin Lee sat next to Ji-Woo. She was Earth's smartest space scientist, but the aliens rarely listened to her ideas. She had been studying the problem for years, but every time she tried to speak at these meetings, someone would politely change the subject. Ambassador Taemin Kim represented Earth in the galactic government. He was a good diplomat, but Ji-Woo could see the frustration in his eyes. Humanity had ideas about what might be causing the dying stars, but the older races thought humans were too young to understand such complex problems. We must face the truth, said Luxander, the brightest of the Luxari energy beings. His light pulsed with sadness. Our galaxy is dying. We have tried everything. Our best weapons cannot fight this enemy. Our greatest shields cannot stop it. Even our most powerful computers cannot predict where it will strike next. The room fell silent. These were the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. They had technology that seemed like magic to humans. They could build planets, move stars, and travel faster than light. But none of it helped against whatever was killing their home. I propose we begin the Great Withdrawal, said High Crystal Velanara. We must save what we can. Load our ships with as many people as possible and leave for the Andromeda Galaxy. Start with the core worlds and work outward. Murmurs of agreement echoed around the room. A plan had been discussed before, but no one wanted to admit defeat. Now it seemed like the only choice. What about the Outer Rim territories? Asked a delegate from the Zephyrian bird people. Billions of beings live in those systems. We cannot save them all. We save who we can, replied Velanara. The alternative is to save no one. Ji-Woo felt his heart sink. The Outer Rim included many human colonies. Earth itself sat near the edge of civilized space. When the aliens talked about saving the core worlds first, they meant leaving humanity behind. He stood up slowly. The conversation stopped as all eyes turned to him. Most of the aliens looked annoyed that a human had interrupted their important discussion. Maybe we should think about this differently, Ji-Woo said. His voice echoed in the huge room. What if we're looking at the problem wrong? What if there's another explanation for what's happening? High Crystal Velinara's crystal body flashed. With impatience. Commander Park, we appreciate Earth's enthusiasm. But this crisis is beyond the understanding of a species that has barely learned to leave its home planet. Dr. Lee has been studying the energy patterns, Ji Woo continued, gesturing to Hai Jin. She has some interesting theories about. Theories are for classrooms, interrupted Luxander. We deal in facts. The fact is that stellar energy is disappearing at an exponential rate. The fact is that we have no way to stop it. The fact is that our galaxy will be completely dark within 500 years. Hai Jin tried to speak. If you would just look at our data. The Veltar have analyzed all available data, said Velinara. Our crystal minds can process information in ways organic brains cannot comprehend. If there were patterns to find, we would have found them. The Keth Collective added, our hive consciousness has examined this problem from every angle. Millions of minds working as one see no solution. Individual thinking cannot succeed where collective thought has failed. Ambassador Tae-min Kim leaned forward. All we ask is that you consider our research. Human scientists often approach problems from different angles than different angles, repeated one of the Zephyrian delegates with what sounded like laughter. Yes, we know about human creativity. You are still learning basic physics, while we have mastered the fundamental forces of the universe. The meeting continued, but Ji Woo stopped listening. They had already made up their minds. The Great Withdrawal would begin immediately. Huge ships would start evacuating the most important worlds, the ones closest to the galactic center, where the oldest, most advanced races lived. As the session ended, Ji Woo, Hai Jin, and Tae-min walked back to their small ship. The human vessel looked tiny next to the alien craft docked at Nexus Prime. Their technology seemed primitive compared to ships that could bend space and time. They won't listen, Hai Jin said quietly. I know what's causing this. It's not natural stellar death. Something is taking the energy. Something intelligent. Can you prove it? Asked Tae-min. I think so, but I need more data. And I need them to give us a chance. Ji Woo looked back at the space station. Inside, the greatest minds in the galaxy were planning to run away from their home. They had the most advanced technology ever created, but they had given up hope. Maybe, he said slowly, being primitive isn't always a bad thing. Maybe sometimes you need fresh eyes to see what everyone else missed. The three humans returned to their ship, carrying with them the weight of a galaxy that had lost all hope. Dr. Hai Jin Lee barely slept anymore. Her laboratory and soul never went dark, filled with floating holographic displays showing star charts, energy readings, and mathematical equations that covered every wall. She had been working on the Galactic crisis for 3 years, ever since the first reports came back from the outer territories. Look at this pattern, she said to Dr. Dong Hyan Choi, pointing at a 3-dimensional map of dead star systems. The energy loss isn't random. It moves in waves, like something is systematically draining power from one region before moving to the next. Dong Hyan adjusted his glasses and studied the data. He was Earth's quantum mechanics expert, but even he struggled to understand what they were seeing. The aliens say their computers found no patterns. That's because they're looking for the wrong kind of pattern, said Dr. So Young Kang from across the room. She specialized in exotic matter theory, the study of strange substances that barely existed in normal space. They expect patterns based on physics. But what if this follows biological rules instead? Hai Jin nodded excitedly. Exactly. What if something is feeding on stellar energy? Not just taking it randomly, but hunting it, consuming it the way a predator hunts prey. The 3 scientists had worked together since the crisis began. While the galactic community prepared for evacuation, Earth's small research team kept digging deeper into the mystery. They had advantages the aliens didn't recognize. Human brains that had evolved to find patterns in chaos, to see connections that pure logic might miss. Captain Minho SEO entered the lab, still wearing his space fleet uniform. He commanded Earth's small defense force, 12 ships that looked like toys compared to alien battlecruisers. But his ships had been studying the edge of the dead zones, gathering data in places the advanced alien vessels feared to go. Admiral Eugene Beak wants a full report, Minho said. The Galactic Council is accelerating the withdrawal timeline. They want to start evacuating core worlds next month. Hai-Jin felt frustrated. We're so close to understanding this. If they would just give us more time. Time is what we don't have, Minho replied. 3 more systems went dark this week. The dead zone is expanding faster than ever. In another part of the building, engineer Dae-Yoon Lim worked on what seemed like a completely different project. Her team had been developing adaptive matter converters for terraforming new worlds. The machines could restructure atoms, changing one element into another. It was supposed to help humans build colonies on planets with hostile environments. The energy requirements are enormous, Dae-Yoon muttered, making adjustments to her prototype. To convert matter at the atomic level, we need precise control over fundamental forces. Her assistant, Bao Ora-Jung, looked up from her calculations. What if we didn't need to control the forces? What if we could redirect them instead? Dae-Yoon paused. It was an interesting idea. Instead of fighting against the natural properties of matter, maybe they could work with them, guide them, channel them into new configurations. Back at Galactic Command, Admiral Eugene Beak reviewed reports from human scout ships. Earth's vessels were too small and primitive to carry the advanced sensors that alien ships used. Instead, they relied on basic instruments, optical telescopes, radio receivers, and simple electromagnetic detectors. "Sir," said Lieutenant Wu Jin, our ships are detecting something strange near the dead zones. Massive structures that only show up on basic optical scans." Yu Jin frowned. "What kind of structures?" "We're not sure. They're geometrical. Perfect shapes floating in space where the stars used to be. The alien ships can't see them because their energy-based sensors show nothing there." Meanwhile, Dr. Sung Woo Han was studying biological samples from the edge regions, the areas where star systems were beginning to lose power but hadn't died completely yet. As Earth's leading expert on alien life forms, he had been looking for any signs of biological activity in the affected zones. "This is impossible," he said to his research partner, Dr. J. Hyon Oh. "These energy readings don't match any known life forms, but they're definitely showing signs of organized behavior." Ji Hyon leaned over the data. Could it be some kind of energy-based life, like the Luxari, but different? Maybe. But if so, they exist partially outside our normal space. They're only touching our dimension enough to drain energy from it. The pieces were coming together slowly. Hai-Jin's team had identified the hunting patterns. Minho's ships had found the mysterious structures. Dae-Yoon's engineering work suggested new ways to manipulate fundamental forces. And Sung Woo's biological research indicated that whatever was causing the crisis was alive. Late one night, Hai-Jin called an emergency meeting. All of Earth's top scientists gathered in the Seoul laboratory. Admiral Eugene Beak joined them by holographic link from his command ship. "I think I know what we're dealing with," Hai-Jin announced. "Dimensional parasites. Creatures that exist, partially in our universe and partially in higher dimensions. They're not trying to destroy the galaxy, they're farming it." The room fell silent as she explained her theory. The entities existed mainly in dimensions humans couldn't perceive, but they could reach into normal space to harvest energy from stars. To them, Stellar energy was food. They were no more malicious than humans harvesting wheat from a field. That explains the patterns, said Dong Haiyan. They're following optimal harvesting routes, not random destruction. And the structures our ships detected, added Minho V. COMM link. Those must be some kind of storage facilities. Places where they keep the energy they've collected. So Young shook her head. But how do we fight something that exists in dimensions we can't even see? Maybe we don't fight them, said Da-Yun. Maybe we change them. My matter converters work by restructuring atomic bonds. What if we could restructure dimensional bonds instead? Admiral Eugene Beek looked skeptical. That sounds like science. Fiction, even by our standards. All of our technology would sound like magic to someone from 100 years ago, Hai-Jin replied. The aliens think we're primitive, but sometimes primitive approaches work, or advanced ones fail. The meeting lasted all night. By morning, they had the outline of a plan. It was dangerous, probably impossible, and would require technology that didn't exist yet. But it was a plan. The next day, Hai-Jin sent her findings to the Galactic Council. She included all their data, their theories, and their proposed solution. She asked for one thing, more time to test their ideas before the Great Withdrawal began. The response came back within hours. High Crystal Velinara's message was polite but firm. The Council appreciated Earth's efforts, but they could not delay. Evacuation based on unproven theories from such a young species. Humans were welcome to continue their research, but the core worlds would begin evacuation immediately. As the message ended, Hai-Jin looked around her laboratory. Her team had discovered something that could save the galaxy, but no one with the power to help would listen to them. What do we do now? Asked Dong-Haiyan-Hai-Jin, smiled grimly. We save the galaxy anyway, even if we have to do it alone. Outside, Earth's small fleet prepared for a mission that would either save everyone or destroy the last hope the galaxy had left. The emergency alarm echoed through Nexus Prime at 0347 Galactic Standard Time. Commander Jiwoo Park woke instantly in his small quarters, years of military training bringing him to full alertness in seconds. The alarm meant only one thing. Another major system had gone dark, but when he reached the command center, the news was worse than anyone had imagined. The entire Korth sector had vanished overnight. 12 billion people across 47 worlds had simply lost all power. Simultaneously, no distress signals, no evacuation calls, just silence where a thriving civilization had existed hours before. How is that possible? Asked High Crystal Velinara, her crystal body flickering with disbelief. The Korth sector spans 6 light years. Even our fastest energy drain scenarios predicted it would take months to consume that much space. The Luxari delegate Luxander pulsed with fear. Our deep space sensors show the dead zone expanding at near light speed. Whatever is causing this has accelerated beyond all our models. Ji Woo studied the tactical displays. The dead zone wasn't just growing, it was growing intelligently. The expansion followed the most efficient path to consume the maximum number of star systems in the shortest time. This wasn't random destruction, it was strategic. We need to evacuate everything in the projected path, announced Velinara. All ships to emergency stations. Begin immediate withdrawal of populations from threatened systems. But as the great evacuation fleet launched, something unprecedented happened. Ships began losing power while traveling through what should have been safe space. Vessels that had functioned perfectly for centuries suddenly found their energy cores failing. Emergency power lasted only hours before that too was drained away. On Earth, Dr. Sun Woo Han watched the crisis unfold from his laboratory. He had been working with technician B.O. Ra-Jung and physicist Jae-Hyun Oh to analyze energy signatures from the affected regions. What they discovered made his blood run cold. The pattern is accelerating, he told Dr. Hai Jin Lee over secure communication. Whatever these entities are, they're learning. Each system they consume teaches them how to drain the next one more efficiently. B.O. Ra pulled up comparative readings on her screen. Look at these energy signatures. They match theoretical models for dimensional parasites, but they're more complex than we thought. They're not just feeding, they're growing, evolving. Jay Ion pointed to another display. The quantum resonance patterns suggest they exist in at least 7 dimensions simultaneously. They can reach into our space from angles we can't even perceive. The implications were terrifying. These weren't simple predators consuming energy randomly. They were intelligent beings that learned from each successful feeding, becoming more efficient with every system they destroyed. Back on Nexus Prime, the evacuation was failing. Captain Minho Co. received desperate communications from refugee ships stranded between star systems. Their power was draining away in space that had been perfectly safe just days before. The dead zone isn't expanding in a sphere, Minho reported to Admiral Eugene Beek. It's sending out tendrils along shipping routes, following the paths our ships use most frequently. It's like they're hunting our evacuation fleet. Admiral Eugene Beek made a command decision that would have seemed insane. Under normal circumstances, all human vessels switch to backup systems, shut down energy-based technologies, and revert to mechanical instruments only. The order seemed like suicide. Navigating space without energy-based sensors was like trying to sail an ocean blindfolded. But human ships had been built with redundant mechanical systems, a design choice. The advanced aliens had mocked as primitive and unnecessary dot as Earth's small fleet switched to basic instruments. Something remarkable happened. They could suddenly see things that had been invisible to energy-based sensors. Navigator Yoon Ji-yoon gasped as her optical telescope revealed massive structures floating in the supposedly empty space around dead stars. "Captain," she called to Min-ho, "you need to see this." The structures were geometrical, perfect crystalline shapes that seemed impossible in nature. Some were cubes the size of moons. Others were complex polyhedrons that hurt to look at directly, as if they existed in too many dimensions for human eyes to fully comprehend. Systems analyst Hyun-woo Park tried to make sense of what they were seeing. These structures are only visible when we use purely optical instruments. Any kind of energy-based scanning makes them disappear from our sensors. Minho realized what this meant. They exist partially outside our normal space. Energy-based. Sensors can't detect them because they're looking in the wrong dimensions. As human ships continued their mechanical instrument surveys, they discovered something that changed everything. The structures weren't random. They were connected by threads of distorted spacetime, forming a vast network that stretched across the dead zones. Energy flowed through these connections like blood through veins. The parasites weren't just consuming stellar energy. They were building something with it. Something vast and complex that existed primarily in higher dimensions, with only small portions visible to three-dimensional beings. Dr. Hai-Jin Lee received the scout reports with growing excitement and horror. Excitement because it confirmed her theories about dimensional entities. Horror because the scale was far beyond what she had imagined. They're not parasites, she told her team. They're architects. They're harvesting our universe's energy to build structures in higher dimensions. To them, our entire galaxy is just raw material for some kind of construction project. Engineer Da-Yoon Lim looked up from her adaptive matter converter prototypes. If they're building something, then they have to follow structural principles. Even in higher dimensions, you need foundations, support systems, and energy flows. What are you thinking? Asked Hai Jin. I'm thinking that anything that can be built can also be modified or demolished. My matter converters work by restructuring atomic bonds. But the same principles might work on dimensional bonds. The idea was staggering. Instead of trying to fight the dimensional architects directly, they could potentially disrupt their construction project, force them to exist entirely in three-dimensional space where normal physics applied, but it would require getting close to the structures, close enough to deploy the modified matter converters. And that meant sending ships into the heart of the dead zones, where no vessel had ever returned. Captain Minho Co volunteered immediately. His ship, the Harmony, was Earth's newest vessel. Unlike alien ships that relied entirely on energy-based systems, the Harmony used hybrid technology, part energy, part mechanical, part biological systems that could adapt to changing conditions. It's a suicide mission, Admiral Eugene Beek warned him. We don't know what will happen when you get close to those structures. Maybe, Minho replied. But if we don't try, everyone dies anyway. At least this way, we have a chance. As the Harmony prepared for its dangerous journey, Earth scientists worked frantically to modify Dione's matter converters. They had one shot at this. If their theory was wrong, or if the technology failed, the galaxy would be doomed. But as Minho looked at the star charts showing the rapidly expanding dead zones, he realized something that gave him hope. The dimensional architects had made one mistake. They had revealed themselves to a species that specialized in seeing patterns others missed. Humans had evolved to find solutions where others saw only problems. The galaxy had given up hope. But Earth was just getting started. The Harmony launched into the darkness, carrying with it the last desperate plan to save trillions of lives. Behind them, the dead zones continued to expand, swallowing star after star in their relentless advance toward the galactic core. The Harmony drifted through space that no longer followed normal rules. Captain Minho Co watched his instruments flicker and fail as they entered the dead zone. Energy-based systems shut down one by one, leaving only mechanical instruments and basic optical sensors. All energy readings are 0, reported navigator Yoon Ji-yoon. But the mechanical sensors are picking up massive gravitational distortions ahead. Systems analyst Hyen-Woo Park peered through the main optical telescope. Captain, you need to see this. Minho looked through the eyepiece and felt his breath catch. The structures they had glimpsed from a distance were far more magnificent and terrifying up close. Crystalline formations, the size of planets, floated in perfect geometric arrangements. Some were simple cubes, but others had so many sides and angles that human eyes couldn't track all their surfaces at once. "They're beautiful," whispered Dr. Hai-Jin Lee, who had insisted on joining the mission. "And completely impossible. Those shapes couldn't exist in normal three-dimensional space." The Harmony continued deeper into the dead zone using only mechanical thrusters. Without energy-based propulsion, they moved slowly, but that turned out to be an advantage. The dimensional architects seemed to ignore anything that didn't use stellar energy. The ship was too primitive to register as a threat. As they approached the largest structure, a complex polyhedron that seemed to fold in on itself in ways that made no geometric sense, something unprecedented happened. Space around them began to ripple, and suddenly the Harmony was no longer alone. The first contact was not what anyone had expected. Instead of hostile aliens or incomprehensible monsters, they found themselves facing beings of pure geometric beauty. The entities appeared as shifting patterns of light and shadow, mathematical concepts given form. They moved through dimensions the way humans move through a room, effortlessly stepping between different levels of reality. "Welcome, three-dimensional beings." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, speaking directly into their minds. "We are the Void Architects. We did not expect visitors in this construction zone." Minho found his voice first. "Construction zone? You're destroying our galaxy." The response carried what could only be described as confusion. Destroying? We are creating. We harvest excess energy from an inefficient universe to build perfect forms in higher dimensional space. Surely you can appreciate the beauty of our work? Dr. Hai-Jin Lee stepped forward, her scientific mind racing. You're killing billions of people. Entire civilizations are dying because you're taking their stars. People? The Void Architect seemed genuinely puzzled. You mean the temporary? Chemical reactions occurring on certain planetary surfaces. Those are not permanent structures. They change and decay naturally. We simply accelerate an inevitable process. The conversation that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. The Void Architects were not evil. They simply existed on such a vast scale that biological life barely registered in their perception. To them, organic beings were like sparks from a fire, briefly bright, but ultimately insignificant. Your species fascinates us, the lead architect admitted. Most three-dimensional beings cannot perceive our constructions at all. Yet you found US using primitive optical instruments. How do you see what others cannot? Hai-Jin realized this was their chance. We see patterns, connections. We understand that everything in the universe is related. Energy, matter, space, time. We don't separate them the way other species do. Interesting. The crystalline Veltar see energy as tools to manipulate matter. The hive-minded Keth see matter as obstacles to overcome with energy. The energy-based Laksari see matter as a lower form of existence. But you see them as the same thing expressed differently. Einstein taught us that mass and energy are interchangeable. Hai-Jin explained. E equals mc squared. Matter is just energy moving slowly. Energy is just matter moving fast. The Void Architect's form shifted, geometric patterns cycling through configurations that existed in more dimensions than human minds could grasp. You think in ways we had not considered. Most species we encounter see the universe as separate. Categories: energy here, matter there, space in one place, time in another. But you see unity where others see division. Min-Ho seized the opportunity. Then you understand why we can't let you continue. You're not just taking energy. You're taking the foundation that all life in this galaxy depends on. We offered other species transcendence, the architect replied. Liberation from the limitations of three-dimensional existence. They could become part of our perfect geometric forms, freed from the chaos of biological life. Why do they refuse this gift? Engineer Da-Yun Lim, who had been silent during the exchange, finally spoke up. Because chaos isn't a flaw to be fixed. It's the source of everything we value: creativity, growth, love, discovery. Perfect geometric forms are beautiful, but they can't laugh at jokes or wonder about tomorrow. The lead architect's form stilled. For a long moment, the space around them remained silent except for the distant hum of mechanical systems. You present a perspective we had not calculated, it finally said. But we have invested millennia in this project. The perfect forms must be completed. Dr. Sung-Woo Han, monitoring the conversation from Earth, transmitted a message through the Harmony's communication system. What if there was another way? What if you could complete your project without destroying our galaxy? Impossible. The energy requirements are absolute. Stellar fusion provides the only power source capable of supporting construction in higher dimensional space. That's when Dae-Jung revealed her trump card. Not the only source. What if you could exist entirely in three-dimensional space? Use the energy you've already collected to give yourselves permanent physical form. The suggestion sent shockwaves through the assembled architects. Other geometric beings began materializing around the Harmony. Dozens, then hundreds of entities existing partially in normal space. Physical form would limit us, one protested. We would lose our ability to manipulate higher dimensional structures. But you would gain something else, Hyjin said. Permanence. Right now, you exist partially in multiple dimensions. That makes you powerful, but also unstable. You have to keep feeding on energy to maintain your form. Physical existence would make you self-sustaining. And, added Minho, you would experience three-dimensional life the way we do. You could understand why biological beings value their existence. The debate that followed lasted hours. Void architects argued among themselves in mathematical languages that created visible equations in the air around them. Some supported the idea of physical existence. Others saw it as limitation and imprisonment. Finally, the lead architect reached a decision. We will consider your proposal. But the process you describe, forcing higher dimensional beings into three-dimensional form, such technology does not exist. Dayun smiled. Actually, it does. We've been working on adaptive matter converters for years. They can restructure atomic bonds, changing one element into another. With modifications, they should be able to restructure dimensional bonds as well. Restructure dimensional bonds? The architect's form pulsed with what might have been excitement. Show us. What happened next was the most ambitious scientific experiment in galactic history. Human engineers worked alongside beings of living mathematics to modify matter converters into dimension converters. The void architects provided detailed knowledge of higher dimensional physics, while humans contributed their unique perspective on seeing unity in apparent opposites. The test would be dangerous. If it failed, the backlash could destroy the harmony and everyone aboard. If it succeeded, it would change the nature of existence for beings who had existed in multiple dimensions for eons. But as the modified converters came online, Minho realized they had one more advantage. The void architects had collected enough stellar energy over millennia to power the conversion process. They had unknowingly built the battery that would transform them from dimensional parasites into three-dimensional neighbors. Are you ready? Dayun asked, her hand hovering over the activation controls. The lead architect's form shimmered. We are ready to discover what it means to truly exist in your universe. The galaxy held its breath. The modified dimension converters hummed with power as engineer Dayun Lim made final adjustments. Around the harmony, hundreds of void architects waited in formations that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Their geometric forms pulsed with anticipation and fear. Beginning dimensional anchoring sequence, Dayun announced. Captain Minho Co coordinated the operation while Admiral Eugene Beek monitored from Earth. This wasn't a battle. It was the most complex construction project in galactic history. The first architect volunteered to undergo the transformation. Its form was a simple cube that somehow had more sides than geometry should allow. As the dimensional converter focused on its structure, space around it began to ripple and bend. Energy readings are off the charts, reported systems analyst Hyen Woo Park. The converter is drawing power from the collected stellar energy. It's using the architect's own construction materials to anchor them in three-dimensional space. Dr. Hai-Jin Lee watched in fascination as the cube began to solidify. What had been a shifting pattern of light and shadow became something with real mass, real substance. The architect was experiencing physical existence for the first time in its long existence. The sensation is extraordinary, the newly physical being said. Its voice now came from vibrations in the air rather than direct mental communication. We can feel the pressure of space around our form. Is this what you call weight? That's gravity, Dr. So Young Kong explained from Earth via communication link. Your mass is interacting with the gravitational field of nearby objects. You're part of normal physics now. The transformation process accelerated. More architects volunteered, curious about physical existence. Each conversion required careful calibration. Too little power, and they would remain partially dimensional. Too much, and they might destabilize entirely. Dr. Sung Woo, Han, and physicist Jae Hyun Oh monitored the biological aspects of the conversion. The architects weren't becoming organic life, but they were gaining properties similar to living beings, the ability to process information through physical interactions rather than pure mathematics. "Remarkable," said one newly physical architect, its crystalline form now gleaming with reflected starlight. "We can perceive electromagnetic radiation directly through our surface structures. Is this what you call sight?" Navigator Yoon Ji Yoon laughed. "Welcome to the universe as we experience it. You're seeing light that traveled millions of years to reach you." As more architects underwent transformation, they began to understand something they had never grasped before: the value of impermanence. Their perfect geometric forms had been eternal and unchanging. But physical existence meant growth, adaptation, and connection to the environment around them. The conversion process revealed the true scope of what the Void architects had built. Their stellar energy collection system stretched across hundreds of star systems, connected by dimensional conduits that had been invisible to normal sensors. Engineer Bo Or-jung worked with the physical architects to redirect this vast network. "Instead of feeding energy into higher dimensions," she explained, "we can reverse the flow. Send the collected energy back to its sources." The task was enormous. Lieutenant Colonel Woo Jin Nam coordinated the military aspects of the energy redistribution, while the newly physical architects provided detailed maps of their collection network. "We had not considered the concept of returning harvested energy," admitted the lead architect, now calling itself the first to form. Its crystalline body sparkled with patterns that seemed to express emotion. "In higher dimensions, energy transformation is irreversible, but in three-dimensional space, processes can be undone." The energy redistribution took months. Dead stars slowly flickered back to life as their stolen fusion fuel returned. Worlds that had been frozen in darkness began to warm again. The process wasn't perfect. Some stars had been completely drained and couldn't be revived. But billions of worlds that had been condemned to death found themselves saved. As the galaxy healed, something unexpected happened. The Void architects, now calling themselves the architects of form, discovered they had gained something they never possessed in higher dimensions: the ability to truly create rather than simply harvest and rearrange. Working with human engineers, they began building new types of structures, space stations that existed partially in multiple dimensions, providing vast amounts of living space in small physical areas. Energy collectors that could safely harvest stellar wind and cosmic radiation without draining stars. Transportation networks that folded space without requiring massive energy expenditures. Dr. Hai-jin Lee found herself working alongside beings whose understanding of mathematics and physics far exceeded her own, but who needed human creativity to imagine new applications for their knowledge. The collaboration produced breakthroughs that neither species could have achieved alone. "You taught us something we never knew we were missing," the first to form explained to her during one of their research sessions. "Purpose beyond perfect form. In higher dimensions, we could create mathematical beauty, but it existed only for its own sake. In your dimension, creation serves life." The transformation wasn't just technological, it was philosophical. The architects began to understand concepts they had never needed before: cooperation instead of consumption, growth instead of static perfection, community instead of isolation. Ambassador Tae-min Kim found himself negotiating a new place for the architects in galactic society. It wasn't easy. Many species remained terrified of beings who had nearly destroyed the galaxy. But the architects' willingness to help rebuild what they had damaged slowly earned them acceptance. "They're not the same entities that threatened U.S. Tayman explained to the Galactic Council. Physical existence has changed them fundamentally. They experience consequences for their actions now. They understand what it means to be part of a community rather than above it. The Veltar were particularly fascinated by the architect's new crystalline forms. The two species began collaborating on projects that combined Veltar light manipulation technology with architect dimensional knowledge. The results were structures of breathtaking beauty that served practical purposes, cities that existed in folded space, allowing vast populations to live comfortably on small worlds. The hive-minded Keth found the architect's transformation from collective mathematical consciousness to individual physical beings philosophically challenging. But they appreciated the architect's systematic approach to problem-solving and began working together on projects to optimize resource distribution across the galaxy. Even the energy-based Lasari developed relationships with the architects, teaching them how to experience electromagnetic phenomena as something more than mere data. The architects, in turn, showed the Luxari how to create stable physical forms when needed, bridging the gap between energy and matter. Captain Min Ho Co. commanded the expanded human fleet that now included ships built with architect technology. These vessels could travel vast distances by stepping partially into higher dimensions, but always returned to normal space. The galaxy had become smaller and more connected than ever before. The crisis had revealed something important about the nature of the universe. The most advanced civilizations had become so specialized in their approaches to reality that they couldn't see solutions outside their areas of expertise. Humans, with their shorter history and broader perspective, had been able to see connections that escaped more focused minds. We didn't save the galaxy with superior technology, Admiral Eugene Beek observed during a ceremony honoring the human research team. We saved it with superior perspective. We saw possibility where others saw only problems. Engineer Dayun Lim, now leading a joint human architect research institute, agreed. The other species saw energy and matter as separate things to be manipulated. We saw them as different aspects of the same underlying reality. That let us imagine solutions they couldn't conceive. The architects of form established permanent settlements throughout the galaxy, but they never forgot the lesson of their transformation. Physical existence had taught them to value the temporary, imperfect, chaotic beauty of biological life. They became protectors rather than consumers, gardeners rather than harvesters. Years later, when new threats emerged from distant galaxies, the response was swift and coordinated. The Veltar provided energy manipulation technology. The Keth offered collective problem-solving capabilities. The Lexari contributed their mastery of electromagnetic phenomena. The architects shared their dimensional knowledge, and humans provided the young perspective that saw how all these different approaches could work together as parts of a greater whole. The galaxy had given up hope when faced with an incomprehensible threat, but Earth's power, the ability to see unity in diversity, to build bridges between different ways of thinking, to find solutions by changing the nature of problems themselves, had not just saved everyone. It had made them stronger. The Void architects had come to harvest energy for perfect geometric forms in higher dimensions. They left as the architects of form, building imperfect but beautiful structures that served life in three-dimensional space. They had learned that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't the ability to consume or control, but the ability to connect and create.